namaste. Welcome to this episode of On the Spot with me, Sharon. You're watching YTML Television, and we are still in Seattle, Washington, home to Bill Gates, Boeing, Starbucks, Nirvana's Kurt Cobain, and the gravesite of Bruce Lee too. So today, I bring you to mankind's one of the most smartest invention, airplanes. We are standing in front of the Flight Museum here in Seattle, Washington. This is the largest air and space museum in the world. This is also a non-profit establishment, and it has a bunch of aircrafts, and anything you want to learn about aviation is what you will find in here. So today, this is a great opportunity for all those who want to learn about aviation, about airplanes, about history in the World War II. As you can see behind me, these were aircrafts used in the World War era. I'm standing right outside the building of the Museum of Flight, and there are some airplanes on display. So this is a good day and a great way to learn about aviation. Namaste. You're on the spot with me, Sharon, and as I told you, we're in Seattle, Washington, and we are in the Museum of Flight, the largest air and space museum in the world. And we've got a fine gentleman out here, Mr. Ted. Welcome on the show.
Good morning. Thank you for being here.
Thank you too. So he is going to be our tour guide, because this is also my first time here in the Flight Museum. So what can you say about the Flight Museum, sir?
Well, as you said, this is one of the largest air and space museums in the world. It is certainly one of Seattle's main attractions. We are right up there with the Space Needle, monorail, places like that. It is a place that people can learn not only the history of aviation and see some of the greatest aircraft and artifacts of it, also just learn about the history of it.
Yeah. Do you have a lot of people that are enthusiastic about learning about airplanes, and what kind of gender does it cater to, like children or just everybody?
Pretty much everybody. As you can see, we've always have lots of kids here. It's a place where people bring families, and we design the exhibits that way. We have areas that are just for kids. We have areas that are interactive for both parents and adults. And then, of course, we have many people here who used to work in the business. These are our docents, and they can answer virtually any question about aviation or space.
So it seems like we have a really historic airplane right behind us. Could you tell us what it is and where does it date back to?
Well, this is it's a mail plane that dates back to about 1925, and it's an interesting story in aviation history because William Boeing, who started the aircraft company of his name, he got involved in aviation back in about 1916, was his first airplane, which is hanging right up there, actually.
Okay.
But with this one, at that time, most of aviation in this country was to carry the mail. We weren't carrying passengers yet. That was very, very limited. So the big contracts with the government was the only way that some of these startup companies were making money. So there was a contract for a new mail service with the U.S. government, and Boeing saw that, well, I can design a plane that if it carries passengers as well, then the passengers' payment can offset what we charge the government to carry mail, so it'll be cheaper. And his competitors never thought of that, and he got the contract. So this airplane, which only carried 2 people, only had 2 passengers in that little cabin there, was really the beginning of Boeing commercial airplanes and the jumbo jets and everything else. It all goes back to about 1925 with this airplane.
Wow, so this is the airplane that Boeing first started, and it carried mail and just 2 passengers. Mail means letters or anything, postcards from your loved ones. It's very interesting to see how the history of aviation goes back. Don't you think it's the smartest invention mankind has ever done? It's like a bird, electronic bird in the sky.
Well, I'm sure some people would argue about that, but as a pilot myself, I think it's the greatest thing ever done.
Me too. I think just the ability of an electronic thing up in the space to hold up there and not fall down, those kind of things.
Right. It was a dream for all time, you know, and it's just a very recent time in human history that we've been able to do this.
Well, thank you, Mr. Ted. And information about the first U.S. mail airplane out here that dates back to 1925?
1925.
Boeing's first plane. All right, there's still more to see. You're watching On the Spot with me, Sharon. All right, we are standing now in front of the most popular section of the Museum of Flight. As per Ted, can you tell us briefly about these airplanes we got behind us?
Well, we've got a little bit of everything right here. This large airplane, that was the fastest airplane ever flown that we know of. It could fly over 2,000 miles an hour. That was its cruising speed at Mach 3. And right here, is one of the slowest airplanes that has ever flown. It is powered by people. It's a pedal-powered airplane. It was designed to fly across the English Channel for the first time with humans.
Like a bicycle, but that flies in the sky.
Exactly. So while it cruises a little faster than a person can walk or run, this flies literally faster than a speeding bullet.
It almost looks like the drones we have now, doesn't it? The model?
Well, it was also a very early stealth airplane. This comes out of the late 1950s, early 1960s. So a lot of the stealth technology that we have now started with this. And that section you see up on top, it's not a separate engine, it is a drone. So it was designed to leave this airplane, fly out over the places that they wanted to take pictures, and it would drop its photos. Those would be picked up, and then it would self-destruct, because I forgot to mention earlier, this was a spy plane.
So this is a spy plane for those that spies on people and a lot of other activities that go on.
Yes, it's very much a product of the Cold War. This was the sort of airplane that the U.S. would fly over Russia or Soviet Union at the time to gather information, and it flew so high and so fast that it was impossible for any of the other fighters to fly high enough or to shoot rockets high enough or fly fast enough to catch it. It had no weapons on board because nobody could touch it.
Seems like all these airplanes that are in the museum hold a lot of history. Each got its own history, right? For me, I think this amazing one is this pedal airplane. It's really fascinating. And do a lot of military people, I see a lot of like military people out here come here too?
We have quite a few military attendees. We are close to one of the largest Army air bases in the country, so there is that. And part of our collection, we have a large military collection because that is a part of aviation history.
Okay, so that is the information about this plane right now. You're still watching On the Spot with me, Sharon, on White Himal Television. All right, as you can see, the camera is focused on a section of the Museum of Flight, which covers the beginning of the space age. You can see pictures, equipments, and all kinds of things out here, information about how the space age started. All right, we're still inside where the space age happened, right, Mr. Ted?
That's right.
And where are we standing right now?
Well, we have an exhibit here that looks back at our early days of landing on the moon. So above here, this is called the Lunar Lander, or NASA called it the Lunar Excursion Module, or the LEM. They always had acronyms. So it was something, as you can see, there's nothing aerodynamic about it because it was never made to fly in the atmosphere.
Okay.
So they would actually be standing up. There's a couple windows up there. They mainly have to look down more than anything else because they leave orbit and they land or take off. So they're standing up and controlling the spacecraft that way. It comes down on some feet that it had, some landing gear, which you don't see here. And the way it's shown right here is as it's leaving the lunar surface. So the landing gear would be left on the ground, and the rocket engine you see in the center, that's what propels them back up into lunar orbit, where they'd meet up with a command module, where one other astronaut always stayed. He just stayed in lunar orbit. They'd meet up and then fly back to Earth orbit together, and then leave that and just come back in that. Right
wow. Okay, so this was actually a vehicle to transport the astronauts up in space to go to the moon, right?
It was, yes, it was only used in space from Earth orbit to the surface of the moon and back.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you were watching a vehicle to transport people from the Earth to the moon during, what time was that, sir?
It was beginning from 1968 through 1971, I believe.
Has the technology changed? Probably, right?
Well, unfortunately, we've never been back. So this is the only technology that was developed for it.
Do you think they're still in the process of making something and attempt one more flight to the moon?
Oh, sure. We'll be back. It'll become a regular thing.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. Teddy's going to explain about this model that we are looking at.
Okay, well, this is a scale model of the Lunar Excursion module. So this is what they would fly down to the moon. This is the landing gear there, special equipment, and the ladder that they would use to come out and get on the moon. But what we see in our full-scale mock-up behind us, that's all that would come back.
Right.
So everything down here is still up on the moon.
Wow, that's amazing about how that thing could be on the moon like this. Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching the model of how it would look on the moon, or it looked that time. And this is the little buggy you said that goes
That's the moon buggy, yeah.
It's a moon buggy. The astronauts drive around in the moon. All right, you're on the spot with me, Sharon Sherpa. We are still in the Flight Museum here in Seattle, Washington. And I'm standing in right of the flight simulator that lands the lunar module. So you have all these controls here. You could actually try and land it on the moon, which I heard, and I was told by Ted that it's really difficult. You can see all the control panels here, all the instructions, and what is what, and I'm not going to try and push anything. I don't want to be landing somewhere else. But to tell you, they got this really interesting simulator here where you can feel that you're landing on the moon. All right, you're on the spot with me, Sharon Sherpa, and with me is Ted, and he is giving us a tour of the Flight Museum, and we are standing in front of the door of the U.S.
U.S. Airways 737.
737. Theater. Okay, let's go and feel how it feels inside the airplane. I mean, it's just a normal airplane body, right?
That's it. It's one of the early 737s.
Okay.
And I think what most people are surprised about is how roomy it is. Look at these big seats.
There's more space. All right, and we have reached where the pilots used to fly from, if you can see. This is really interesting. It does seem very spacious during that time, doesn't it?
Oh, it does. And I think what people can see about this cockpit is that it's old sort of technology. Nowadays, you look at an airliner and it's glass panels, just like somebody looking at their computer screen.
Right.
Back then, it's a lot of dials, a lot of switches.
Yeah, that seems confusing for me too. So this is one of the U.S. Airways 737, and we are inside it. We're still in the flight museum here, and helping me with explain about the history of all these aircrafts is Ted. All right, you're watching On the Spot with me, Sharon, and as you can see, I'm sitting on the cockpit of Blackbird that was built around 1960s, and it's the fastest plane during that time. And I am actually scared to push these buttons because I might just land in Nepal right now from here, from the Museum of Flight in Seattle, Washington. So keep watching YT Mal Television, and we'll be right back.